Alright, here it is then, finally. The big shallow. Shall we call it that way? The big shallow? I kinda like it.
So that video was released almost 2 years ago. That was when I first got the big shallow. Today in this video I want to explain to you guys why I decided to get rid of the big shallow. But first let's go back in time and let me explain to you guys why I actually bought this tank in the first place. Okay, so if we go back to 2 years ago, so just before I got the big shallow, at the time I was already uploading YouTube videos quite regularly. I think the channel was growing well, may have had like 10,000 subscribers, something like that. At the time, I think the room looked pretty much the same as well. I just had less tanks, so I just had the shelf, a few nano tanks on the shelf, and then I had 2 tanks next to the shelf. So the biggest tank at that time was the 70-liter Rescape tank from Daimler, which is still quite a small tank, you know, still kind of considered a nano size. So I just remember that at that time I wanted to go for something bigger. I wanted to bring some more interesting content to the channel besides just nano tanks. And I also wanted to challenge myself, you know. Now at that time I was a regular customer at Aquarium design shop. This was a beautiful aquascaping store very close to my home. Unfortunately the shop no longer exists, but they had some really nice large display tanks, so that shop was just a huge source of inspiration for me. And I got along with the owner quite well, and we often kind of bounced ideas of each other. So I told him that I wanted to go for something bigger, but not too big because I live in a rental apartment on the 2nd floor, so it's not really smart to go for something too heavy, you know. And at that time also, shallow tanks were becoming quite popular. I was seeing them a lot on Instagram and I was really kind of intrigued by that. But I could only find like smaller sizes. I think the maximum size I could find was like a 60cm shallow tank. So yeah, that was not really an option. But then one day I got to a Aquarium design shop and the owner shows me this list of a new supplier. And there it was on the list, the 120F. So often with standard size tanks you get the size and then a letter behind it. So if you have a 30cm cube, it's a 30C. If you have a standard size 4-foot tank, it's 120P. So this was the 120F, 120 centimeters by 50 centimeters by 30 centimeters. So for me this was perfect because my initial plan was to kind of go for a standard size 120p, so 120 by 50 by 50, but I didn't really feel comfortable with that because that's roughly 300 liters, which is quite heavy, especially if you are living on the 2nd floor of an apartment, you know. So this new shallow tank seemed perfect because it was only 30 centimeters high. It would hold 180 liters, which is almost half. And I think 180 liters would be no issue here. So yeah, I placed the order for the tank and it would arrive a few weeks later. So the first thing to do was to make space for the big shallow. At the time I had 2 smaller nano tanks on this side, so they had to be moved, so they went across to the other side of the living room. And I had to get myself a cabinet because I basically just ordered a rimless tank without anything else. So I bought a cabinet for a Dual Rio 300. The dual tanks are very popular here in the Netherlands and you can buy those cabinets separately for pretty good price. So yeah, I bought a stand and then I also reached out to a few companies asking if they would kind of wanted to collaborate on this project. So I got myself a brand new Oase Biomaster 850 as well as the Skylight Hyperspot. So with the cabinet, the filter and the light, I basically had everything I needed to get started. So it was time to go back to Aquarium design shop and pick up the tank. And this was a really exciting moment for me because up until then I had only basically been keeping nano tanks. I mean, I had bigger tanks in the past, but that was before I discovered aquascaping. So this was going to be my first big aquascape. So with the tank in place, it was time to really get to work and start building the layout. And I think at that time a lot of my subscribers were expecting me to do this crazy hardscape with lots of things coming out of the water, lots of immersed growth, lots of terrestrial plants, but no, I decided to go for a rock only layout with almost like an Iwagumi style. Why I decided to do that, I'm still not exactly sure, but I think it was because I got my hands on these really beautiful rocks and to me it just made sense to make the rocks shine. So yeah, I went for an Iwagumi style with nothing coming out of the water. I think I also did that because I kind of wanted to stay in my comfort zone, just play it safe and just do something that I knew that I would be able to pull off. Okay, so fast forward to a few weeks later, hardscape layer was done, the big shallow was planted, it was filled up, everything was looking good. On to a winner, you would think, but no, that wasn't the case. Things did not really go according to plan. So by the time the big shallow was planted, it was actually already like almost summer, and we had 2 holidays coming up. So we would first leave to Spain for a week, then come back, be at home for a few days, and then leave again for another week for another holiday. So in total we were gone for almost 3 weeks. And to leave a fresh tank without maintenance for 3 weeks in really warm temperatures, yeah, that's never a really good idea. So after we came back from our second holiday, like the tank was a mess, it was full of algae. I had blue-green algae, I had all kinds of algae. The plants were in really terrible shape, so yeah, things were not really going very well. But with consistent maintenance, slowly over time, things finally started to turn around. And a few months later, the big shallow was actually looking really, really good. So I kept this layout for almost a year, maybe even a little bit more than 1 year, and I really enjoyed it. But after 1 year, it was time for something new. And I knew that this new layout had to be something completely different and kind of what I was supposed to do in the first place. Something with a lot of hardscape coming out of the water, terrestrial plants, terrestrial mosses. I think that's what shallow tanks are actually made for, right? Like immersed growth. So this new layout, I found some really nice pieces of wood, some really nice lava rocks. And with that, it was quite easy to make a big, bold hardscape that would lend itself well for terrestrial plants. Now I knew that this wood, I never used this type of wood before, but I knew that it would release some tannins, it would grow some mold, and that's exactly what happened. But besides that, also the water got very cloudy, and that I did not really expect. But it was not really a big deal because I was kind of going for a biotope style layout, and the cloudiness kind of enhanced the feeling of a natural river. And I knew that the cloudiness would kind of go away by itself. So I decided to go for a South American biotope style, almost like an Amazon River biotope. So I added a large group of these green neon tetras, different types of dwarf hairgrass, and also some apistogramma. And this was going really well. Layout was maturing nicely, the immersed growth was growing well, and because I didn't really have a lot of plants in the aquatic section, it was actually a pretty low maintenance setup as well. So I was really enjoying it. Now fast forward again to a few months later, everything went south. At some point the water started to become really cloudy again, and I also woke up one morning and I noticed that the cabinet was starting to cave in the center, so it was putting a lot of pressure on the edges of the glass. That made me very uncomfortable, especially because we were going on a small trip for a few days, so we were leaving the country. So to make me feel a little bit more comfortable, I decided to lower the water level just to reduce the pressure on the cabinet. But yeah, after we came back from the trip, I decided it was best to empty the tank, so yeah, take everything out and then reinforce the cabinet. Now after I had reinforced the cabinet, I guess I could have rebuilt the same layout again, make the same layout, just with the reinforced cabinet, but somehow, because the wood was causing the water to become cloudy, I just didn't think that was a very good idea. And I also thought it's probably better for content if I come up with a new layout again. So I decided to do a rescape, but because this rescape was kind of forced and I had to kind of rush the process as well because I was keeping the fish in a little pond, so I kind of had to rush this rescape. I didn't really feel inspired, and I just went with a very simple river style layout with a piece of wood, some pebbles, and some gravel. It was a nice looking layout, but it was not really like wow or anything, you know. So as weeks went by, this tank was developing quite okay. It looked alright, but I just noticed that I wasn't really spending a lot of time in front of the big shallow. Like normally I would take some time out of my day and I would just sit in front of each tank and kind of enjoy it, look at the fish, feed the plants, add fertilizer, whatever, you know. But I noticed that with the big shallow I would kind of just walk right past it. So that made me think, okay, that's not good. So should I do a rescape? Should I make a new layout again? But that thought didn't really excite me. So I was thinking, should I improve the current layout? Didn't really excite me either. So yeah, for a while I was thinking like, okay, what should I do now? What should I do to bring back this feeling of excitement, you know? So after giving it a lot of thought, I basically came to the conclusion that I'm kind of just done with the big shallow. I think this shallow aquarium really shines when you're combining the aquatic and the immersed section. So kind of what I did with the second layout. I think personally the second layout was the best. I also enjoyed that one the most. But if I think back, even with that layout, I was personally mostly enjoying the aquatic section. So the black water with the fish, and with that, just that biotope style, you know. Like the immersed section was cool, but it also didn't really excite me that much. And I've just noticed that over the past few years, I've tried several times to like have terrariums and just try to grow plants immersed. And it was fun to make them, but after you make them, yeah, the excitement is kind of gone and I don't really enjoy it anymore. So I think this was a good lesson for me that I just love fish, I love water, and I love aquatic plants, preferably a lot of aquatic plants. So that's what I love, that's what I have to go back to. So the big shallow is going, and I'm going back to standard size aquariums. So I've already ordered something, it's already here, and I can't wait to show you. For now, this is it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys very soon.